We've done
Hello,
the same
everybody.
things.
Welcome back to another episode of James Bond Bitcoin Live, episode 0058, hashtag Enigma. And today I have Brian here as a co host. Say hello, Brian.
Howdy, everybody.
Excellent. So, today we got a lot of things to talk about. In the notes section, we have um, a few articles, one of them being uh, debunked rumor that Amazon will accept Bitcoin as fake news. And we'll get to the root of the fake news, which is the most interesting part, in my opinion. And then also we have, yes, Blockstream having patents in Segwit makes all the weird pieces of the last 3 years fall perfectly into place. And there, I forgot the author's name, but we'll talk about him later, and we'll talk about that article. And then we'll also talk about the pot of gold, which is one of Yellow Fever's idea, where it's a combination actually. The pot of gold, when I first heard of it, was actually something that Craig Grant made and Trayvon kind of did, and in which they would get people to donate into an address, and then a certain amount would be, they would skim off the top and cut off the bottom, and everything in the middle would go back to everybody else who qualified to get some. A little different though in this pot of gold. We'll get to that as well. So let's first talk about the meme for today. I'll read it out loud here. It says, "A sucker born every day," and hashtag yes to X. So this is Mark Stirring. Brian, I'm sure you're very familiar with Mark Stirring.
Sure, I'm very familiar with him. He has a big mining operation up in near the North Pole. They use geothermal energy and have warehouses full of equipment. I'm totally invested in it. I'm a sucker. I was born one day, and this
You were
meme's
definitely
about me.
born. Not necessarily you, but just about everybody else. You're not really a sucker, but I'm just playing with people's emotions here. That's what the meme's all about, right? And if you look here, you'll see that I have a YouTube symbol. If you are savvy enough to scan that, it'll take you to a video. Uh, his plea to, I guess, his quote unquote customers to continue to use his service, and his promise to keep paying, which I guess he did. He did keep his promise, because you are getting paid. Is that correct, Brian?
Yeah, you know what? At the end of the day, while it would have been a better investment for me to have just outright made a purchase of Bitcoin instead of purchasing Genesis Mining, they have kept their promise. They did catch up on payments, and they have been paying daily for like a month and a half now. So whatever happened, they've stabilized it.
Well, of course they had to, or else they would probably have less customers and wouldn't be on their end very profitable at all. On the right, there's a QR code, and believe it or not, I'm actually in Genesis Mining as well. I have my own code. If you scan it, you'll see what my code is, and go ahead and use my code when you sign up. So, of course, there's a joke in there somewhere. So, and the reason why it's hashtag yes to X is because Genesis Mining is part of the New York agreement. They have agreed to go along with Segwit 2X, which we'll talk about a little bit later when we get to that article. But if you look at this, the reason I picked this picture is because look at that smile on his face. He is a very, very happy man. And Brian, do you know who Angelo Mazzolo is?
I do now, but that's just because you told me about 20 minutes ago.
But before you didn't. But if you recognize the picture, I'll click on it. and that smile is universally like known for very happy people who make great amounts of money, and the way they made their money is kind of questionable, but happy. And here's Angelo Mazzullo. He's a very, very happy man. I remember watching him on CNBC, and when they did his interview, his company was called Countrywide Home Loans, and his company and stock was just going through the roof. He was making money off the fees off the loans, off the refinance on the loans, and then the refinance off the loans. Um, and he was very, very, very happy man. Look at the smile on his face, and then look at the smile on Marco's face. They seem to have a similar characteristic in the way they smile. They're really, really happy. But as you know, in the end, uh, Countrywide did go under in the end. That's a fact. Actually, it was bought out by Bank of America, but they would have gone under for the most part. That's why Bank of America had to buy them out. And one of the reasons is they were selling loans or contracting loans to people who couldn't really afford to make them. And then when the, I guess, financial crisis happened and people were losing their jobs, markets were crashing, the loans were not able to be repaid. And I think there's a similar story in this with Genesis Mining, is that uh, something similar may happen with Genesis Mining. I'm not saying it will, but I like to warn people out there of possible calamity, if at all, and maybe, prepare themselves for this to happen. When it does happen, you can handle it a lot better than being, shocked and surprised, because in the end, something's got to give. Either the customer has to lose out, or the company has to lose out, and I'm not sure which one's going to happen. I'm pretty sure the customer is going to lose out. So that's just my take on this. Of course, I know, Brian, you're hopeful that you'll get your payouts all the way to the end.
Well, sure. And as well as I should be, right? Since I have some investment in it. But I'm realistically hopeful, you know, with the type of business model they have. Um, who knows how long they'll last? And with any company under any industry, if they can't make it past 5, 7 years, then they're not going anywhere. Most fail within the first couple of years. I'm not for sure how long Genesis has been around.
It's
Uh,
actually been about 5 years, from what I
okay,
understand. People tell me it's about
interesting.
5 years. I haven't
Hmm.
heard of them until 2014. That's the first time I've heard of them.
Well, I would just say don't give your money or your Bitcoin to anyone that promises you to give you a return on your investment over a long period of time. Just outright purchase your coins that you want and do what you want with them. And don't leave them on exchanges or with companies, because almost every one of them have been hacked or probably will be. Because when you can't hack the blockchain, but when you start putting interfaces and databases attached to it, you can attack those weak points and redirect things. And boom, Bitcoins are gone. Your investments are stolen.
That's what I heard. They got hacked, and somewhere they had a vulnerability somewhere, um, and there's nothing that as a user or customer can do. You can only hope for the best, which it turns out it did work out for you guys. Apparently, you guys are getting payments, but I've also noticed that there's a lot less YouTubers out there talking about upgrading. So I haven't seen a lot of those videos lately. Not as much as before, like 3 or 4 months ago, where everybody was upgrading and everyone was joining the bandwagon of upgrading each other. It was like it was a huge circle jerking going on. I was like, oh my god, everyone's gone bananas. Now all those videos are gone and disappeared. So I don't know what the fate of Genesis mining is now. Um, Hopefully the price will continue to go up. I know everyone's hoping the price goes up to like back up to 5,000, go beyond the 7,500 and 10,000, and just keep on going to the moon and Mars and all that. But I know whatever goes up so fast eventually comes down. So I'm hopeful that it takes longer to come down than it would to go up. The other thing I'm a little concerned is that Genesis Mining is a signer for the New York agreement. How are they going to handle the split or the fork if it does happen in November? And then if it does, which coins are they going to offer? Because in the mining process, if they're a miner and they sign the agreement to go to Segwit 2x, that means they're going to be mining Segwit 2x coins. Do you have any idea about that, Brian?
No, I'm uncertain, but throughout this process, if they, whatever side they choose, if people start choosing sides and we start seeing different levels of hash power going in different directions, if we're watching closely enough, we might be able to figure out how much hash power they actually have over there at Genesis.
We might actually figure that out, right? Yeah, that's a good point. This may be an opportunity to figure out how much hash power they actually have. I never thought about that. We could probably see what happens in the split, and then also if you check your account, I wonder if they're going to start offering like Bitcoin Legacy and then Bitcoin 2x. That'd be interesting to see if they start doing that. I don't know how much they're going to do. They haven't said anything. I haven't heard a peep out of them about this whole hard fork coming up, and it's October right now, October 1st. It's about a month. We're about a month away from the hard fork, and I haven't heard anything. I
Or
barely heard
maybe,
people even talk about it.
so gone till November applies to him as well.
Yeah, he may be gone forever. Know, there may be a chance that he may be gone forever. Because look at that smile, and then
That
look at this smile. I mean,
those
there's
smiles
so
mean
much.
they can afford their own private island with all the amenities to serve them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, they don't have to worry about you guys anymore. So, but yeah, I don't know. I haven't heard him say anything, other than the video of him pleading with everybody. It's kind of weird to see a CEO come on YouTube on his phone, and the way he did his phone, it's like a vertical. Do you know what they call that? Where you have if you look at a video, the videos platforms is made for horizontal viewing, but people have it vertically. Do you know what that's called? Isn't that called like a vertical format syndrome?
I'm unfamiliar with that.
Well, people, there's YouTubers out there that use their phones. They hold it up vertically, and so when you watch it on the computer or even on the smartphone, the way the format's set up, they are only using like a third of the screen. And anytime, even if you flip it the other way and it switches over, it only uses a third of a screen. I think it's called vertical format syndrome. Like
Right, I'm
people.
familiar with what happens because I hate when that happens. I didn't know it was called that. I'm unfamiliar with that as the terminology for it. I should have said.
Well, I'm not sure if that is a terminology, but I think it's something like that. So he has his video set up that way, and I'm hating to watch this thing already. It's like, oh, this guy cannot even turn his phone in a way that lets me watch it in a viewable way. But I have a link over there. Some people are saying they can't scan it. If you maybe click on the link in the notes section, you'll have a bigger picture of it, and you could probably scan it from there. Maybe it's a little bit more clearer, but it is scannable. I tested out myself, so it does work, and it'll take you to that 3 minute mark where he's literally begging the customers. That is highly unusual for someone to do that, to come out on YouTube and do that. Usually CEOs, if they fucked up like that, they spend millions and millions of dollars on ad campaign. They don't go on YouTube with the vertical format syndrome and spend 5 minutes telling everyone that the payments are coming.
Well, that is kind of a unique thing, and it worked. Like maybe people aren't hyping it up, but no one's dogging it really either.
Good point. Good point. So we'll see what happens to Genesis mining after the hard fork, and we may actually get some valuable information from the hard fork on how much hashing power they get. So let's go on to the next thing here. Let's see here. What are we going to talk about? Oh, okay. Let's talk about Amazon real quick. Last week there was some rumors about Amazon accepting Bitcoin, and it quickly was debunked as fake news. Now, that's not the news of it. The real news, in my opinion, is where the source came from. And let's see here if we can. Oh, here's a picture of the source. It came from this advertisement, and I forgot the guy's name. Let me see. Oh, James Alt Altscher. I don't know how to say his last name, but this guy's apparently a crypto billionaire, and he runs a website which is basically an info website, an infomercial website on buying his newsletter. It's one of those newsletter things where you buy the newsletter, and it's basically a list of cryptos to buy. So he's basically a pumper for the most part. And then in the ad, let me see, in his website, let me see, here it is. Let's see how long it takes to load up. It's like very long,
He looks like he's
very,
wearing a
very long.
wig.
He probably is. He's probably bald. Like most of these guys are literally bald. There's something about crypto, pump and dumpers, and baldness. There seems to be some kind of relationship there. I don't know what it is, but they all or they wear two pegs. So but let's see. I think I got to go onto the page to have it load. But basically, here you go. Eccentric millionaire reveals his secret 1.8 million. Oh, what happened? 1.8 million cryptocurrency script. I'm getting hacked while I'm loading this page apparently, and so
Dun dun dun.
this is dun dun dun. I'm gonna get a virus now. All my bitcoins are gone. So this is where all the information. I don't even know where it is because if I just scroll down, it just goes on forever and ever and ever. Like he's telling you, like Verge, a single 100 bill turns into 57 million or $57,000. Let me see. It goes on. Okay, Digibyte. If you bought Digibyte for $100 back in March, you would have made $30,000. Like this is where the information came. This is the source of that news, that fake news came from. And somewhere in here, he mentions Amazon will accept Bitcoin, and this is the source of the information. So that's this is where the source came from. So this is how desperate some people are getting. They have to derive news from an info website.
That's amazing. Well, you know, I'm not for sure about those exact numbers, but if you had invested in anything around February or March, you would have seen amazing returns, and some of them a lot greater than Bitcoin.
Yeah. There's been a huge well, Ethereum is an example. It's returned over, well, I don't know, 4,000% is maybe a little much, but definitely in the thousands of percent they've moved. I think they were like around $12. Now they're hovering just under 300. I'm not sure what the price is now. So there is some truth to it, but they're crypto millionaires now, But the problem
Right.
is, you're not a millionaire until you actually have like dollars. Like as he said, his secret $1.8 million. You know, so that's a key word here.
Right. And the other secret to this investment strategy was to have invested back in February and March.
Yeah, he's back. He's backdating. So there's your awesome secret. Anyways, you can go check it out. There's links to this article right here where they talk about it. And if you want to definitely buy his newsletter, I don't know how much it costs, but you get a free book, Cryptocurrencies 101, James Altucher. So I doubt that's really his real name though, but that's where your news is coming from these days, people. It's it's amazing. Next one I'll go to is the one you brought up is Bitcoin China. Let's see if it pops up here. So Bitcoin China exchange has stopped trading after operating for a world record of 2,305 days. Long live Bitcoin.
Now, I wanted to talk about this, not so much because I know about or have used BTCC, but I know you are familiar with it, and I know this is a big deal that it's gone now.
Well, I don't know if it's gone. I think they just stopped trading. So even with the withdrawal halt, they were still trading, but it was so low, so small, but they were still trading. I think they actually stopped trading altogether. So they actually closed or temporarily shut down. I don't know if they're going to come back or not. Supposedly they are uh, after a certain time frame is the rumor, but I don't know if you can write them off because they've been around such a long time. It's kind of weird just to say, oh, we're just going to close shop. Goodbye.
So let me run this by you, James. So China looks at Russia, Japan, their neighbors who are getting heavily involved in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And they say, listen, we've got to beat them, right? So as a communist country, they say, all right, how do we do this? We take over everything. It all becomes operations of the state, and we oversee it all, and we, run the show. So they call for a ban, a shutdown on everything, while they restructure, go into these companies and tell everyone how it's going to be and who runs the show. And then they'll come back in some form, now regulated and ran by the government, uh, maybe under the guise of still being independent, like probably many other companies are in China. Um, and then they'll do a super hard push, harder than we've ever seen, for amassing hash power. And hold on a second.
All right, I'll take this time to.
Sorry about that, James.
Okay, go ahead.
Random person on the street there. Um, people don't know about personal space. You live in New York, you should know about that, right?
No, you don't, right?
Hmm. So yeah, that was basically the crux of it. I was pretty much finished anyway.
Okay, so you think they're coming back, except it's going to be nationalized. It's a state operation now.
Yeah, stronger
I
than
always,
ever.
I always felt, I always felt everything in China was already state operated. If not state operated, then at least it will be state operated. There's like a level of organization in my opinion in China that everything is is done through the sanction of a state or through of the state. Everything down to even your family life. So if you have a dispute or problem, you take it with an official, the local official, like local town official, and then he'll come in and intervene and remedy the situation, or smooth everything out. So it's like being in a huge mafia. Is kind of how I see China. You know, you may not get too much intervention in the beginning, but once you get big enough, then the state will take over, because the state will have more resources, more funds, and more capability to make it even better.
And that could be what we're seeing here.
Yeah, it's quite possible. So, anyways, bye bye, China. Looks like the world has moved on without you. It's because from last I checked, the prices kind of gone up in the 43, 400 range. Hopefully, it'll be able to go above 5,000, but we'll have to see. 5,000 is the key to maintaining this upward momentum. If it can't reach 5,000 in U.S. dollars, obviously, then we're in for trouble. So let me move on to the next one here. Oh, before that, let's go on to my little plugin here. Did I do this yet? No, I don't think I do it. All right, so Yellow Fever a long time ago suggested that we do some kind of pot of gold. Well, I'm calling it a pot of gold. This is something I think I heard Craig Grant and Trayvon do. Not that I'm trying to follow them, but Yellow Fever suggested to me, let's do a giveaway where I put in like maybe $5 in the beginning, and then have other people put into it, and allow other people to try to basically either crack the code, or as it reaches a certain level of bitcoins or money in the address key into the pot of gold here, that I give away a clue to the seed code, or the backup recovery seed. And so I'll give that a try. On the right hand, in the yellow target there, the golden target, that is the encrypted private key for anyone to try to crack the code. And it's something related to yellow fever for you. So it has to do something with yellow fever for you. All right. That's probably the only clue I'll give. And then on the left side there with the arrow pointing to the pot of gold, that is the address key. Anyone want to donate, I'll monitor it. And as it goes up, I'll give out a, I don't know if I give out a word or maybe a clue to the one of the words to the recovery seed. And then on the bottom right there is the link. It's a QR code. It links you to Yellow Fever for You, his channel. So go check him out. I have some news. I haven't been talking to him for a while, Brian. It turns out that an unfortunate event happened. I believe his nephew passed away.
I'm sorry to hear about that. My condolences, Yellow Fever. Sorry to hear about your loss.
Yeah, so if you go to his channel, I think he may have a place to receive some donations for his nephew. And I found out because I was watching his Friday night. I think he has a Friday night show with Thomas. Let me see, what's it called? Beer with Crypto or something, where they just hang out. I haven't heard from him. I haven't seen him do a video. I was a little concerned. I thought he might have been in some kind of trouble, but looks like he had some issues, or issues with his family. So that kind of explains everything. So go ahead and check out Yellow Fever for You, and say hello and hi to him. Leave some comments. Even subscribe to him. Let him know that you care about him. So that was a little plug in here. So please donate to the pot of gold. Let's have some fun with it, and hopefully someone is a big winner. We're not going to distribute out. So there's not going to be 15 people winning this. It's going to be to the person who either cracks the code, or is able to complete the recovery seed. So good luck to you all. All right, so we're going to go on to this subject here. Flan, I forgot how to say his name. Uh, uh, this is what I don't even know how to say it. Flagvinge on Liberty. This guy is the leader of the Pirate Party. I don't know if it's Sweden. I think it's Sweden. There's Rick Flagvinge. He was also on the round table, the Bitcoin round table. He's kind of been a quote unquote big blogger. And the headline here is this is obviously, I guess, his website, his blog post here. Blockstream having patents in Segwit makes all the weird pieces of the last 3 years fall perfectly into place. Brian, have you had a chance to read this?
Yeah, I did read through it. And
I, I know it's long.
did you read in the comments as well?
I read some of the comments.
Gregory from Blockstream actually responds to the article and refutes
Oh,
everything that
really?
was says. Yeah.
Well, when I read this article, um, I I had my doubts a little bit because he even admits that he's never seen the patent, and so he doesn't even know what the patent's all about, which is kind of weird. Why would you write about it if you've never actually even seen the patent itself and write about it? And so I did want to bring this up and talk about it because it does seem to frame a narrative like um, basically that Blockstream has has filed for patents, and what he's trying to say is that Segwit is a mechanism for the blockchain or for Bitcoin, and Blockstream is making some feature, a second layer feature that is patented that works with Segwit, and that if anybody else wanted to use their feature on a second layer, that the reason why it works so well is because of Segwit, and that's why they wanted Segwit, into Bitcoin, into the recent soft fork, and that's what he's saying. Rick Falkvinage, I don't know how to say his last name, but the author of this blog, and he was trying to compare it to his experience with telecom, how they're trying to make industry standards, and that the players or the industry players always try to put in stuff that was a feature that was patented, and into the standards, so that when they rolled it out or they made it a standard, it had to be whatever feature that or mechanism was being used had to be purchased through a certain company, XYZ.
Well, okay. I don't know if there's evidence of Blockstream performing this maneuver, but in theory, someone could perform this type of maneuver. This would fall into the category of an answer to a question that I've had is um, putting extra layers on top of Bitcoin. What kind of vulnerabilities would that open Bitcoin to? And this scenario would be one of them. Now, I don't know if Blockstream's actually, working on the scenario, but somebody could.
Yeah, he makes it sound like patents on Segwit makes everything fall into place. It's kind of hard to say because I could kind of understand what he's talking about. Like there could be patents for a second layer, but Segwit itself was developed by the core development team, which was an open source project in which they pretty much um, looked over, uh, tested, agreed on to put into Bitcoin code as a soft fork. So when I first read this, I thought he was trying to say Segwit was a patent, but no. As I read through it, and it's quite long, he was trying to say Segwit was just the mechanism in which patents could be used by by Blockstream that was kind of unique to them, in which they would, you know, I guess be a gatekeeper of, because he mentions that these companies don't make money and that Blockstream may go bankrupt, and in going bankrupt, there's a chance that these patents may go to the creditors, which is AXA, was one of his arguments. So AXA Insurance, or whoever, or anybody who eventually ends up with these patents, may use these patents to basically be a patent troll on the industry.
That's not infeasible. Like I said, the possibility of that happening, maybe not at the Segwit level, but at a different level, is there. And yes, Segwit was designed uh, openly with a group of developers, but it doesn't have to be that layer. It could be another one. There could be another access point that provides interface for all types of things. And if someone has a patent on that, that access point, which opens everything up, then they could choke it back down to where it is now if they wanted, or further.
Right. And in the article here, or in the blog, he kind of does some kind of internal dialogue, which is kind of weird. I've never seen, if this was a news article, this would be laughed at, but he has some internal dialogue where BS is Blockstream, com is community, and he's making his internal dialogue into a conversation which he's writing about. And then he even got minors in here, so he's got some imaginary internal dialogue which he's expressing through this through this blog. Have you read this part of this blog here?
Yeah, I have. And it's an interesting conversation. And it all makes sense if there was some evidence to back it up.
Yes, if there was the keyword, if there really was some evidence. It seemed more like an internal dialogue that he's had himself inside of his head, and he's just expressing it to make his point without any proof, which is all right if this is his opinion on why everything makes sense to him now, the way he framed it. That's fine, but it just seems kind of really strange that he would try to put these like as if this really happened, like as if Adam Beck actually says sign as CEO of Blockstream, which he did, but he frames it in a timeline, which again it's an internal timeline in his head, which is kind of
Well,
weird.
James, right there where it says signs as CEO of Blockstream, that's an asterisk. So that's meant to be an action, not a statement.
Oh, okay, I see. So it was an action in a time frame that he framed, and that he put in his head to express what he's trying to say. And so which these things did happen, but he's kind of, I think he's stretching it there just a little bit with the way he's doing this. But let me go on, and then let me see if I could find that about. I didn't read further down into it's a very long article, or very long blog. Let me see, where is it? Actually responded.
Yeah,
How far? There it is.
there it is.
Oh, I didn't read that part. Let me see. I'll read it right now. Let me see. Blockstream does not have any patents, patent applications, provisional patent applications, or anything similar. Do we really know this is Greg Maxwell, other than the fact that it says Gregory Maxwell?
No, we have no evidence.
Okay, but we'll read it. There should be a counter argument for it at least. And so let me see. The Bitcoin developers work carefully to not create patent complications. Segwit was a large-scale collaboration across the community. Okay, yeah, of course, which included people who work for Blockstream among its many contributors. Moreover, because the public disclosure of Segwit was more than a year ago, we could not apply for patents now. All right. Well, he's shooting that down real quick. In the prior thread, there was is that absurdity was alleged on Reddit. I debunked it forcefully, considering that Rick directly repeated the tortured misinterpretation of our patent pledge from that thread, a pledge which took an approach that was lauded by multiple online groups. I find it hard to believe that he missed these corrections, doubly so in that he provides an incomplete response to them as though he were anticipating a reply, when really he already seen the rebuttal and should have known that there was nothing to these claims. Let me see. I'll just go ahead and just read the. It's not too long, but as an executive of Blockstream and one of the contributors to Segwit, my straightforward public response: number one, that we do not, have not, will not, and cannot apply for patents on Segwit. Okay. Uh, Number two, that if had we done so, we would have been ethically obligated to disclose it. And three, that even if we had done so, our pledge would have made it available to everyone not engaging in patent aggression. Just as the plain language of our pledge states, if others depend upon their response, if others depended upon these responses, it would create a reliance which would preclude enforcement by Blockstream or our successors in interest, even if the statements were somehow untrue, or so the lawyers tell me. In short, Rick Falkvinge allegations are entirely without merit and are supported by nothing more than pure speculation, which had already been debunked.
Well, the first thing I want to say is I think that pronunciation of Rick Falkvinge's name is probably most accurate. That's how I'm going to say it from now on.
All right.
Falkvinge.
Falkvinge. And let's see. There's some information on Rick Falkvinge here. There it is. Rick is the founder of the first pirate party and low altitude motorcycle pilot. He works as head of the privacy and at the no log VPN provider, Private Internet Access. So that's who he is. I've seen him on YouTube and doing his interviews and everything like that. Seems more of a libertarian than anything. Probably one of the early adopters.
No, but I hope
Maybe
Rick
one of
keeps
your.
doing his thing, though, because even without the evidence, conceptualizing this as a feasibility is important. Someone's got to be out there thinking about these things. They just need to come with their arguments and present some strong evidence to support it, you know?
Right, right. And I think he's not really talking about patents on Segwit. I think he may be talking about patents on the second layer that depend on Segwit. So like he was saying, there's a mechanism, the mechanism being Segwit, and then the feature that is patented. And so that feature, whatever it may be on the second layer, which only Segwit allows that feature to work. So in doing that, maybe there might be something there. But again, there's no evidence. It is plausible. It is something to think about. Could that be it? I'm not too sure. We'll have to see. Although all the second layer applications, in my opinion, they seem light years away. You would think that the built up of this up to Segwit, the soft fork Segwit, there would have been like companies already or already second layers ready to go. No, not that many wallets have been upgrading to Segwit compatible wallets, other than the hardware wallets. But Koinami, Mycelium, well, whatever. I don't know if Bread wallets supporting Segwit addresses, but there's not that many.
No. And they seem to have been around for a while because I've seen addresses with threes at the beginning of them that have had, transfers back toward the beginning of the year.
Well, those are those may be multi-sig addresses.
Oh, they're okay. All right.
And so those have been around for quite a while, actually. Bitphoenix, BitGo does a lot of that. So if you had a BitGo, if you use BitGo services or BitGo, BITGO, bitgo.com, they use multi-signature wallets. And so those start with a three. Those are like pay to script hash, I believe. But they start with the three. So that the Segwits are the same as well. Segwit addresses are like that. The only way you
Hmm.
could tell is if you actually do a transaction, you go into the like the input scripts or something like that, and they'll say witness in it. You actually have to look at it.
Right. I have another question while we're
Or
talking about Segwit, but you can finish that thought and then I'll ask it.
okay, well, some of the wallet generators they produce uh, bit49 addresses, which are Segwit addresses.
Hmm. Okay. Now, say a person tries to sweep a Segwit wallet on a non-Segwit application, like Mycelium, for instance, and it'll come up and say there are no coins in that address, and it'll show
Yes.
an
Yeah.
address that is actually a non-Segwit address. So my
Yeah.
question to you is, generate a Segwit wallet. Do you unlock the private key for a non-Segwit wallet that someday might have an owner?
Yeah, the I'm assuming you may be talking about one of my treasure hunts.
Well, no.
Or is that something
The
you notice in
that's
general?
how the thought came into mind because it
Okay.
because I've noticed that's people are not grasping that non-SegWit wallets won't allow you to sweep a SegWit even if you have the private key, but it'll show you that you're sweeping the private key for a non-SegWit address, which I find very
Yes, that
interesting
is.
and a little disturbing, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. That's the wallets have not um, adopted Segwit into their wallets, is what I'm noticing. I think if you do have a Segwit wallet, it'll recognize it. Like if you have a private key and you sweep that private key, it'll sweep. It should be able to sweep it. And what I did notice is, I'm playing around with different wallet generators, and then the private key for Segwit addresses, they produce. Let me see, two, three, three separate address keys, public address keys. The Segwit, another one, and well, a Segwit address, and then two other addresses with. Uh, Let me see. So two of them have the same private key. One's a Segwit, and the other one's a regular address. And then, but your same private key will produce another address, a, public address, with a separate private key. And there's been different implementations of wallet generators, and so one one private key may produce literally up to three, I think at least up to three public addresses. And as far as I know, the Segwit addresses uh, produce two private keys. One for the Segwit address, which is the same address used for a regular non-Segwit public address key, and then it'll produce another private key with a separate public key. So
My
you're, yeah.
my concern is that the separate non-SegWit address that is generated on that key might actually be one that's being used somewhere.
Well, it's it's I'm not too sure about this, but I think because the fact that it's a pay to script hash function there, that it requires a regular private key. So it's attached to that private key somehow, to that regular public address, because it's very similar to the way like multi-sigs require are basically a bunch of regular addresses that needs to be signed in order to release the coins from the multi signature address. And so I think what's really happening is that that address is really nothing more than just your regular address that's somehow linked to a multi-signature address, public address key,
The
but you
more I
can't
learn about,
access it.
can't access it.
But you can't. But as you're right, if I scanned it like a Segwit address, it's not going to sweep the Segwit address. Like if I took a Segwit private key and I sweeped it with mycelium, it shows me a regular address with zero balance in it, or maybe there was a balance in it. Who knows? So
Right,
you have
right.
to go to the sender, a Segwit sender, and use that like coinables.com or coinables / Segwit / or GitHub or something like that. I think
Coinables.github.com/Segwit, I think.
yeah, yeah. Or if your wallet does have a Segwit, you can probably just sweep the private key and it'll sweep the Segwit address.
My real concern here, James, is obviously the more I learn about Segwit, the more I don't like it. And I've had qualms about it in the past, but couldn't point to anything in particular. But this thing's a little disturbing. Your whole address rests on top of a non-Segwit address. It's like extra steps that are unnecessary. Because I don't believe there's a scaling issue.
You know what? I think you're right. I don't know if there really is a scaling issue. I have to agree, because apparently there was, and fees were going up, and all of a sudden now fees are so low. We're using I'm using like a 2-cent fee, and sometimes it depends on the mempool, but I've seen the mempool go down to like 200 or 300, and I've seen partial blocks. And it looked like Litecoin. I was looking at Litecoin blocks. None of them were always like it wasn't full all the time. So I'm wondering about that. I'm having really questions about this whole scaling debate, and what is it really? Is it really about scaling debate? I don't know anymore. I'm starting to think it's really about development and control. I'm glad you brought it up because it seems like there's a fight for control of Bitcoin between two separate development groups and the miners, and then a faction of users, which are the business facilitators. The common user, well, it has nothing to do with us and what we want. I mean, as far as I know, Bitcoin seems to work just fine, and that it it's the mempool has gone down. It only spikes up at these weird times right before the price starts moving up. This is the only thing I've noticed. Like today, I'll take a I'll see if I can look at the mempool real quick. Um, I noticed this morning. The mempool started increasing, and then the price later on started increasing with it. Let's take a look.
By the way, when Bitcoin Cash forked, it took some of the hash power along with it, right?
Yeah, some of it, some of it. So like right here today, which is the first, you see this little spike up to 16, almost up to 16,000. Well, now we're having a price increase all of a sudden. Let me see, when did this start? This started around 7 o'clock. It started spiking up. Let me see, when did it start? Around 9 o'clock. So I noticed that this morning. It started because I sent transaction, and it took forever. It took all the way up like 12 hours because I only used 2 cent fee on it, and that was yesterday when it was spiking up to here, and then eventually went all the way almost down to like a couple hundred transactions in the mempool, and then it started to spike up again around 4,000, and then I was looking at the price to see what was going on, and at the time it was dipping around 4,200, somewhere around there. Now the price is at what, 4,400. So there's always something going on here. Whenever the mempool gets full, either people are pulling their coins out of the exchanges and driving up demand essentially, or what's going on. There's obviously something going on here.
Well, I don't know what's driving the market. I know there are forces that drive it from time to time, but I don't know what's driving it right now. You have whales that drive it sometimes. You have media who maybe on the behest of whales are driving it sometimes. You have YouTubers that are driving it sometimes. There are a lot of factors that influence the price of Bitcoin.
Yeah, but recently I've noticed whenever there's a spike in the mempool, there's also a movement in the price, and recently it's been going up. And I'm starting to think it's people are pulling Bitcoins out of the exchanges, so there's less Bitcoin on the exchanges. So when people want to buy coins, it's easy to knock through the order books going up or either way, because there's not enough. There's not enough Bitcoins on these exchanges, which is kind of scary because it makes me wonder, like, if there's not enough Bitcoins on these exchanges, do they really have your Bitcoins?
Well, we don't put our money on exchanges, or Bitcoins, I should say, because we only have Bitcoins if we control the private keys and don't allow anybody else to have them. So don't put your coins into any Ponzi schemes or any markets or any cloud mining, and you'll be all right. And don't lose your private keys, and don't give them to anybody unless you trust them and they're your like insurance policy.
Yeah, we could stay on the whole hard forking and Segwit that's coming up. What what is your sentiment and thoughts of November hard fork, the Segwit 2x hard fork?
I just listen to you all the time. Everybody else on YouTube, I'd be fearful and scared and wouldn't know what was going to happen. Now, part of that's true. I don't know what's going to happen. What's going to happen? Um, we'll figure out how we're going to get through it based on what happens. What I worry about are folks who are not very savvy technically. And if a hard fork happens and there are issues with coins, people lose their investments because they don't understand the split and they do something wrong. That's my real concern in this whole thing.
Yeah, I guess we can talk about it because I'm starting to look into it a lot more. Other than the fact there's no replay protection, how are you going to protect yourself from that? Well, apparently, if it does split, um, try to. I think you can be safe if you can find an address that doesn't exist on the other chain. So if you have a Segwit address from the legacy chain that has it's only on the legacy chain, and it's got to be a new address, I think you can send your coins there. But then again, now that I think about it, you could also send your other coins to this address that doesn't exist, and they could be gone forever. And so I think that's why a lot of people are saying you can lose your coins, because essentially it can be replayed on each side of the chain. So you're sending a coin that to an address that doesn't exist on one chain, but exists on the other chain. The other thing I'm hearing or thinking about what's going to happen is that one chain will die. Literally, this is a fight for a chain, a survival for one chain. And so even though it splits, there may be a chance that one will die and the other will live on. And that's what's I think that's the hopeful outcome on both of everyone's mind, is that literally you're fighting for one chain to survive. Because if one hash power, if the one miners, if there's enough miners that are going to go to two Segwit 2x hard fork, there may not be enough miners left to actually continue the old chain, the legacy chain. It may freeze to a standstill, never make another block, because there's got to be at least a 2 week period where it adjusts the difficulty. So this could be like literally giving a heart attack to the old chain.
Well, that's possible, but do you, at this point, just as the landscape looks now, believe there's a majority of companies with hash power who are invested in the hard fork that will follow through with it?
Well, there's a chance. There's a chance. If I'm looking at China, and Bitmain's pretty big over there, and Bitmain's the only large scale producer of miners. And so, if anybody doesn't join his cause, he doesn't sell on miners anymore. And then there goes the mining company. It's dead. And so there's a lot of it kind of going on there. And if you look at the signers of the New York Agreement, there are a lot of miners who haven't said anything, and they've pretty much signed this agreement in New York. And I think the sentiment or the feeling that I get is the people who sign New York, this was like, um, you know, this was a way to try to unite everyone together, which was different from the Hong Kong agreement, which seems to be the reason why everyone broke apart. So I think the miners, some developers, and businesses looked at New York as a way to bring most people together, where the Hong Kong agreement was the reason that it broke apart. The community broke apart. What they quote unquote call a community being the miners, the businesses, and the developers. And so I think there's a really good chance that these people are very, very serious. They have the money, they have at least support from each other. And I think there's enough hashing power there that if it left, if if most of this hashing power left, it's literally a heart attack to the legacy chain. It could really just freeze it, unless they do a hard fork. So there could be another hard fork coming. That's the only way out of it, in my opinion, is the legacy chain does a hard fork to reduce the difficulty right away, so it can go on. So literally, you may see the forking go that way if it really does happen, because otherwise they're both competing, and one's going to die and the other one's going to live. It is what it seems to be like, most likely what's going to happen, um, unless, like I said, unless the legacy chain, in my opinion, hard forks to reduce the difficulty so it could continue on doing the transactions, which we may get replay protection from that. And I think that's the point. I think they really want to shove Blockstream, which seems to be what they don't want is core development team, and they're pushing them out one direction, and literally forcing the rest of the community into another direction. They're just forcing each other's hand.
Well, this is why we needed, and so I've been pushing for, uh, American-made miners, homegrown hash power. I know it's a crazy dream, and we're really late in the game, but You can't have someone control everything like that because they have a monopoly on the hardware. It's ridiculous. And we shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be at this point. You know, this argument's been going on for a lot longer than I've been in this space. What, for almost 2 years?
3 years actually, since
Three.
2013, or even longer, 4 years. And it's been going on for a long, long time. I don't even think it really has anything to do with scaling or even regular users. It really has to do with people who have, uh, I think, a large stake in Bitcoin. They have a lot of Bitcoins. They would like to control its future, and they all can't agree on it. And so, push comes to shove, I think they've just said, okay, you people go there, we'll go here, and they're forcing, one side is forcing the issue because they've had enough. They've had enough. They're very frustrated, and they don't want to be in the same boat anymore, so to speak. So they're forcing the issue, and doing a hard fork with no replay protection is a way of doing that because it forces one side or the other to either die or do their own hard fork after the hard fork, so they can live and continue. And so literally, I mean, you will probably see a separation of Bitcoins um, soon enough here. I don't think, because otherwise it just leaves one chain to die. From what I could tell, from what I'm doing my own research, it's just going to leave one chain to die, and so this is going to force the hand of some other people to do things like permanently separate from each other, never to be able to come back again.
I'm going to be honest, James. I don't know what you said the past 60 seconds because I've been off thinking about how we're going to go about increasing or beginning American manufacturing of mining rigs. But anyway,
Yeah,
that's
I know
important.
you say that a lot, but it's so hard because the cost is higher. That's why all the electronics are made in China. Uh, no one can compete with their extreme low cost of labor, and the sheer volume and scale that they have. It just can't be done. People would have to be willing to pay more for a miner. And if you've seen all these YouTubers, they're not willing to do that.
Yeah.
They're not willing to pay more for a miner. They want to pay the least amount, and they don't care where it comes from. They don't even care how it's made. If some, if some poor kid has to make a mining rig by hand and make 10 million a day, they don't care. They just want the cheapest amount because, if you look at the community, a lot of them seem to be libertarians or anarcho-capitalist, and their overall view is let the market decide. And this is how they think that this is the way everything is because the market has dictated this is the way things are, and they're okay with it. And so they'll buy the cheapest and sell it for the highest, or extract as much out of it as much as they can. And they don't. I don't think people don't care. I mean, to some degree I don't even care because I want the cheapest as well. At least same quality or cheaper price, get the least and get the most for my dollar. And until people are willing to, say, no, I want something that I know is made in a way that agrees with my belief, I'm not going to willing to pay. And maybe that tells you what people truly believe in their hearts.
Well, yeah. At the end of the day, it comes down to money. I think all those people who are miners who wear UASF gear, they should reevaluate what they're doing and with whom they're doing business and what it's doing to the space.
Yeah, I know. Um, Hopefully, ultimate decision, hopefully ultimate decision, will be the users in which coin they want. But again, if you know how to split your coins, it makes no difference to the user because I'll get both coins. And so there's no incentive for me to pick a side, you know. And even if they didn't have replay protection, most people are holders. I don't know too many people that actually use Bitcoin on a day-to-day basis. I trade, I speculate. That's about the most I do. Other than that, most of my Bitcoins are in a paper wallet. They haven't moved, and if they do need to be moved, they're just moved for consolidation. I'm just trying to either put them in different wallets or consolidate them into one wallet. Again, not being really used, as just stored. So, but let me go on to our next thing here, and oh, my little joke about BitConnect. All right, this is I'm gonna do my fake plugin for all you people out there. How's Ken doing? Have you talked to Ken? Hello, Brian. You there? I think I lost Brian. Anyway, here's my fake plugin. If you're wondering, am I part of BitConnect? No, this is a joke, of course. And my user name on BitConnect is Too Retarded. So if you want to sign up, go ahead. Use Too Retarded. Anyways, I used this before, and of course, are you there, Brian? Or are you gone? I'm gonna have to check up on Brian. Hold on. Oh, you're there. You just no, he's gone. His battery must have died. Anyways, I was going to talk to Brian about. Oh, no problem. Well, now that you're back, let's talk. Let's chat about Ken. How is Ken doing? Are you headed back up? All right, we'll give Brian a little bit more time. Must be having connection issues.
No, the entire thing just shut down. It rebooted.
Oh, it rebooted. Okay. I see. No problem. So I wanted to talk about Ken. I know he's back. He's done I think one video. How is he doing?
Well, he seems to be doing better. You know, he's easing himself back into the space. I think I didn't know he did a new video. I thought the one he released was previously recorded.
Okay, maybe not. It sounded like he was back, and he made a video recently.
Oh, I got to see it.
It was about the ATM operator.
No, I haven't seen that one yet. I haven't seen a lot of videos yet.
Okay. Well, the only reason I bring Ken back up because he has come back. I'm looking forward to having him on the show. And of course, you know, he was always against. I don't know if he was against, but he definitely didn't like BitConnect. I don't either. I'm seeing a lot of advertisements paid by Craig Grant on videos, and he's pumping BitConnect in his videos, on his paid advertisement videos.
Yeah, I've seen those. They started popping up 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I was shocked. I actually saw the first one during one of your videos.
Yeah, I was wondering why my revenue started going up. I guess Craig Grant has been paying my advertisement fees.
Nice.
So
Well, I guess he's stepping up his game. You know, whenever you have a marketing budget, that means your overall budget's increased, right?
yeah, I guess so. Or it's I guess he's looking for greater fools or more fools because all the fools who know him, he's exhausted his reputation with them.
Hmm. Well, there are some out there left.
It gets pretty bad when you have to like advertise, like pay to advertise to get more people into your pyramid scheme. So, oh
Well,
goodness.
I've noticed all of the schemes when they're getting closer to the end, they do big events. They have big things go on, sales, uh, to try to get folks to spend the last bit of money they can before things go awry.
Yeah, that's the early signs that it's maybe coming close to an end, but who knows. Anyways, here's my meme, and scan on the video that's also to Yellow Fever for you. He explains everything you need to know about BitConnect. And then my last little plug-in is hardware wallets. I know you don't have a hardware wallet or anything. I've always been a proponent of not having one because it's basically a wallet generator on a hardware, and you're paying like 300, maybe $400. I don't even know what they cost. I know they've been kind of uh, being marketed very, very heavily before the hard fork. And apparently, they'll do a lot of stuff for you. They will split your keys for you or split your coins. That's kind of what they've been known to do. But overall, my personal opinion is if you take the time to learn how to do that, um, you won't need a hardware wallet. I think my personal opinion, paper wallets suffice, and they're free, and they actually teach you a lot about how these things are generated.
Yeah, working with the paper wallets, especially in the treasure hunts, has taught me a lot about a myriad of things: blockchain, how transactions work, fees, non-Segwit, Segwit addresses. It's a good tool. Everyone should learn how to use them. And as far as the hardware wallets, even if I had the money to invest in one, I'm uncertain I would do it. I mean, for one, if someone is trying to search for your Bitcoin, or um, whether it's thieves or regulators or enforcement, whatever, they'll be looking for devices, um, pieces of paper in which you've hidden the code, not just like you've got a QR code on there or something. It's going to be much less, much less obvious for anyone who's searching for your Bitcoin. So that's just one of the many advantages of the paper wallets as well.
Well, it doesn't even have to be paper on top of that. If you've been watching the treasure hunts, I've been hiding them in digital pictures and stenography, and that's how you've been getting some of them. And ironically, I'm still doing that today. And it's whether you get some of them are password protected, and so there's many uses to these public and private keys. And also, I'm starting to learn having control of these private keys. Um, you learn so much. You learn about the technology behind it. You learn how to utilize it in very novel ways that literally doesn't. You learn that hardware wallets are, I wouldn't say, completely useless, but you learn that hardware wallets may not be necessary. And I'm so shocked all the time where that people are pushing it so much. I think they're doing themselves a disservice because they're relying on a piece of hardware, which, by the way, at the end of the day, you're writing your backup seed on a paper anyway. So um, but you're right. You're relying on a piece of hardware that could fail, even if you kept them in good condition. It could fail at any time. And so um, using wallet generators, experimenting with the public key, private keys, and the generators themselves, learning more and more about the technology. I've had a lot more fun doing that than trying to buy a hardware wallet from a store, or showing it off in front of people, or some weird stuff like that. I think this space has overdone it a lot.
Well, I want the black leather wallet for my paper wallets. I don't need to advertise that I have Bitcoin. I just like the stealth wallet. It's very nice. It's sleek. It matches my wardrobe too when I pull it out.
Oh, you like the darknet market, or the darknet wallet?
Yeah, and it's not so much that it's darknet. It just doesn't advertise itself. That's all.
Right. Anyways, we're almost to the end of the show. Brian, do you have any closing statements or words that you like to say? Let me go back to Marco here.
Closing words. Oh, with Marco as my inspiration. Um,
or anything you want. Yeah.
um, I would say let's all hope for a break above 5,000 and the return of the bull. Let's all hope withdraw from the New York Agreement. Let us all hope that our Bitcoins are safe and we control our keys.
Wow, that was really good, Brian. I may not have to say anything now. That's it. Well, thank you, Brian, for those very hopeful words. I hope the same as well. And I hope as closer we get to November that people really start talking about it, especially the users. I think that the users are left out of the conversation. I think the users have not had their chance or say in any of this. I know developers can be users. I know miners can be users. I know businesses can be users. But what about the people who actually, but they hold Bitcoin? We should have a say too. And hopefully our voice will be heard coming November. And so, which actually November is actually election year or election month in America for some reason. So maybe it's our time to make our voices heard in November. And please talk about Segwit 2x. Talk about it. Understand what it means to you, because it does make a difference. Anyways, I'm going to conclude this episode. Feel free to like, dislike, leave a comment after the live stream, or even do a video response. Until next time, everyone, stay tuned. Bye.